Moving forward.
Right now, a future president could be running as a local candidate on your ballot. This person is vying to represent you, your family, and your community. Do you know what they are and what they stand for? Vote411.org is your tool for accurate and unbiased, up-to-the-minute election information on the candidates running in local races. Just enter your address to get started. Your vote is your power, the power to decide who represents you in 2022 and beyond. Get online, get the facts, and make your voice heard on Election Day.
Moving forward.
Okie doke. I think we are ready to rock and roll.
Okay.
All right, so let's start it from the top. Can you let everybody know who you are and what office you're running for?
Yeah, so my name is Jordan Hocker, and I'm running for the Upcountry seat of the Maui County Council.
Right on. And so, for a little education for the audience, we're asking everybody to help explain what the office they're running for does. So, could you give a little insight on what a city council member would do?
Absolutely. So County Council oversees a couple different areas. One of the major ones is thoroughly vetting and approving budgets each year, as well as, really in theory, listening to the public and getting feedback on things that we need in forms of legislation or ordinances. So that's it in a nutshell. It's a panel of 9 elected officials that should be serving public interests.
Right on. Well, before we get into your campaign, could we get a little history about you, where you come from, and how we got to this moment here?
Yeah, I'm not usually super forthcoming with the fact that I've been on Maui for around 10 years. Mm-hmm. I'm originally from, I was born in Topeka, Kansas. A lot of my family are cattle ranchers and farmers, background in homesteading, and then sort of turned into big agriculture, which is what happened in the Great Plains area. So I initially came here for a job, and currently, before my decision to run for council, is still involved in community advocacy, specifically around birthing rights and compassionate solutions for our unsheltered residents here in Maui County. I'm also midway through my degree in sustainable science management here at Maui College. Then I have a daughter who's 6 years old. So those are all the hats that I wear in my day-to-day life.
Cool. Okay, so let's dig into it. What is at the core of your campaign for council?
Yeah, really, the core is housing for all. when we look at what's going on here in Maui County, I can't help but feel pretty worried, especially with the way that the pandemic increased our rates of homelessness. I think before the pandemic, it was maybe a little easier to just sort of look the other way and say, oh, well, people are lazy, or they don't want to work, or they're drug addicts, or whatever. Whatever the sort of mainstream narrative was about people who fall on hard times. And when you're looking at the current economy on Maui and the housing increase, for me, those narratives become myths, right? Many of our unsheltered residents actually do have jobs and are looking for places, are seeking help. But we have a limited amount of resources here. And even the entities that are given funding to help find shelter for people, like say they'll pay your security deposit, right? Or help you stay in housing for 6 months. That's even getting harder with our rising rental costs. So it's really housing for all, not just housing for people who can afford it. And there's tons that falls under that umbrella, because when you have housing insecurity, it's harder for our children to thrive in school. If you don't have a place that's solid to stay, how are you going to get good grades? How are you going to contribute to your community? It really sort of trickles out into all these areas. So that's what I would say a foundational aspect of my campaign is. Really, I want to see Maui County and the residents here thriving. And I want to see local people remain here, because it's that culture that I fell in love with, that I don't want to change. And that is unfortunately changing.
Right on. So we've got quite a bit extra time here that you have for yourself. Is there anything else while you have the floor that you're open to sharing with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Before COVID had hit Maui County, I had actually been going to school for human services, because really at the baseline, I want people to be healthy, and I want them to have the resources that they need. I want families to be able to get help that they deserve. And I actually switched my focus of my education to sustainable science management. And that was because I realized that if I went into a field like mental health or social work, if people didn't have the basics, right, like food, water, if you look at what's called Maslow's hierarchy, food, water, shelter, safety, community, then we'd really just be bailing water out of a sinking ship. So another aspect of, what I'm running on and what I hope to put into practice is really sustainable solutions, things that are looking multiple generations into the future with our decision making, instead of being very short-sighted and how we can get things up front. Because really, the decisions that are being made right now, we won't really see the effects of them. It's like the poor planning decisions that were made in certain areas of Kihei back in the 70s to build condos super close to the ocean. We're dealing with those decisions modern day. And I do believe that there is a way that we can make decisions for Maui County that will firm up our water infrastructure, that will make our land use smarter, and in a way that will give Maui County more of a fighting chance against things like climate change and, what is becoming our summer wildfire season, and our drought situation. So, Maui County is really interesting because we're sort of at the whim of the world when it comes to something like climate change or sea level rise. But I do believe that there are things that can be done when we're thinking a little more big picture, that can really increase our resiliency as a county at large, but then also within specific communities, because we know, even Maui has so many different communities existing all in the same place. So, when I see areas like the West Maui Mountains that, when you look at historically, had some of the largest dry land forests on Maui. And, when you look at the history of that being converted to pineapple or to sugar, and that dry land forest being removed, there were ramifications for that. And we're dealing with that currently in terms of how fire prone and drought ridden those areas tend to be. And that poses a huge risk to people who are living in those areas or trying to farm in those areas. And so if you know or don't know, dry land forests can create their own weather. They can cool down the area.
Mm-hmm.
They can put more moisture into the air via the trees that are in that location and actually create their own rainfall. So it's like one of the things I want to bring into the council is really an awareness that if we're going to make things better, we have to be thinking quite far ahead. And less with instant gratification. There are things that are right up in front of us, like this housing crisis that we need to address. But then there are also things that we can be doing for our children's children. And I think that culturally, there's a really a good understanding of that concept here. I just don't see it in policy and in decision making. So that's one of the other major things that I want to bring to the table.
Dig it. So, big question I'm asking everyone is, what do you think the people can do at a time like this to help support the community? Not just for the showing up to vote, What can we be doing interacting with our local government to better the community?
Yeah, one of the things I had to hold myself accountable for, and I would say spend less time on social media complaining about the things that aren't right, and find the things that are within your direct sphere of influence or capability, right? We spin our wheels a lot about the things that we can't change or have influence over. But the thing I like about local government and just community engagement in general is that there's always something that you can do. If you see something that doesn't sit right with you, if you notice that there's a gap in care, start talking to people directly around you. Hey, do you notice this? Is this going on for you too? And start to brainstorm and feel empowered that really you don't have to show up that much when it comes to problem solving in the community to make a big difference. Of course, there's, trying to stay educated on the issues and things that we're up against. But I think that people are working so hard just to try to get by that saying, engage in local government sometimes isn't really realistic. When you have a huge family and you're trying to make sure everyone's fed, and at school and safe and healthy, telling people to show up in the middle of their workday to a county hearing is not necessarily, I think, a fair thing to suggest that people are doing. But what I will say is that, even in our own neighborhoods, there are people who need help. There are people who could use a leg up. We all have access to a certain degree, even if it's just things in our pantry that are going bad, right? That we're not going to eat in 6 months that somebody else needs right now. And so I'd like to see more of that, more just leaning into that culture of sharing with one another, of problem solving, and really feeling like I can make a difference. I can do something. And having that confidence in yourself is really where that started for me, and that path has led me here based on my experience. But the things that I've seen over the past few years that have really given me hope is just regular people stepping forward and saying, there's a need in our community, I see it, and I'm going to do something about it. And if I can't do everything, I'll see if other people want to help. There are great examples of this in terms of there's a Heart and Humanity Facebook group, which is mostly mothers who have extra items either for baby or food or clothing and that sort of thing. And, they're posting it and saying, okay, who can come pick this up? It's that kind of tight-knit community structure that I think we could be living more into just in the small amount of free time that we have. That's what I would encourage more than anything. Of course, just, taking charge within your circle of what you can do is really what I would recommend. There is, of course, please get out there and vote. Please be educated and show up for the things that you're passionate about. But really take care of your neighbors. Take care of that, like, 1 block, quarter, half a mile around you. Make that your responsibility, your area of care. Because I think that's what really will aid, if government is working for the people and people are working for each other, to build resilience during times of hardship. I think that that's equally as important.
Dig it. So, how can folks follow, support, and become a part of your campaign?
Absolutely. So I do have, I am on social media. It's Jordan Hocker for Maui County Council. I also have a website, which is www.hocker4mauicounty.com. I've got volunteer forms there. Right now, I'm really wanting to build a team of people so that we can all work a little smarter and not so hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I do wear many hats, and my family is so important to me, as our family, the rest of the families in Maui County. My position and my perspective really is coming from the understanding of how much work that takes. There's, of course, on my website, there's an ability to donate to my campaign. I am running against a 3-time incumbent who's considerably well-funded, just in general, but also in comparison to myself, as someone coming from a more grassroots background. So donations are always appreciated, and also need the man and woman power behind me to make it possible. So awesome. I can also leave my phone number. You're more than welcome to call and talk story. I'm happy to talk to anybody who has questions or wants to ask me about my positions on things.
Awesome. And speaking of that, this is a little bit shorter of a first interview, but I would love to have you back on to talk deeper about policy in, say, like 30 days if you have the time.
Yeah, that would be great.
Right on. I want to be able to try to interview all the other potential candidates for council and then put together some, I had some questions that the people would like answered, and then I feel some policy questions that the people would don't realize they need answered as well. But I think it would be great if I could get you and the incumbent and all the other folks running for council, and we could talk about those things both separately and as a group.
Yeah, that sounds great. There's many people throwing their hats into the race, and I think that policy is, policy and policy competence are things that we definitely need.
Absolutely.
To have more dialogue about.
Well, mahalo for joining me today. I definitely look forward to unraveling a little more about you as we get to know you. I'm going to definitely take some time to check out your website and follow along. And we'll make sure to put everything in the show notes on how to get in contact with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We got to give everybody one fair chance to get their voice out there.
It's important. Yeah, I agree with that statement.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful day, and we will talk more soon, okay?
Okay. Thank you so much, Kawika. You have a great day yourself.
You too. Aloha.
Okay. Ahuiho.
Rabbit Holes is a Manava Cow production. This episode was produced by Kawika and Sarah Rodriguez. Make sure to subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast platforms to add our weekly episodes to your queue.